Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Note Investing Made Easier, the podcast show with myself, Martin Saenz and Shawn Muneio. Welcome to the program, and hope everyone's off to an incredibly awesome hump day, as they say. However, when you're grinding 7 days a week, I don't know if that's so much applicable. Before we get into today's topic of following through with note investing, I have a few announcements. We are starting to take some enrollments for the Note Investing Fundamentals Workshop on December 11th and 12th in lovely Sarasota, Florida. So we close out at 10 spots. So please register sooner than later. Given kind of the demand and the signups we've seen early, we're pretty sure that it's going to sell out. Also, for existing note investors or people that have been, doing it for some time on and off, we are hosting a mastermind group on December 10th and 11th in Sarasota, Florida as well. So Note Investing Fundamentals Workshop for those starting out is going to be on actually the 12th and 13th. And then the mastermind will be on the 10th and 11th, both in Sarasota, Florida, right off the water. And so good fresh air, nice clean environment, and look forward to seeing everyone and spending that time with folks. So today we have a topic, following through with note investing. And I think that this is one of the topics that's not discussed a whole lot. However, it's critically important to one's success within the note space. So Shawn, I don't know if you kind of want to just take us through, your thoughts on following through as it relates to how you got up and running initially.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I appreciate it. Following through is, it's kind of fundamental when you're starting in this business. You'll face so many different challenges and hurdles and roadblocks. It's not an easy space to be in. It's a very rewarding space, but for those of us who stick through it, there's definitely success for sure. And so when I first started, everybody would tell me, like, look around. 98% of these people you see at conferences or at seminars or whatever, 98% of these people won't be here next year when you come to the seminar. And I just thought it was kind of baffling to me, like, why do people come and go from this space? And I saw that as an opportunity. I'm like, you know what, listen, this space, if I could stay in it, if I could stick with it, if I could beat all these hurdles, I could make it. And so for me, the hurdle list is endless, and we'll just touch on a few of them. But when I first started, I was a real estate investor at heart. Since I earned my first commission check at the age of 22, I was in sales. Selling technology, and I took my very first commission check, and went out and bought a duplex. And so for me, my real estate journey began with, I'm a young sales guy wanting to be, a real estate entrepreneur, and so I began that journey, buying Section 8 housing, working a corporate job during the day. Cleaning up after people at night, right? You know all about that, right? So cleaning up after people, fixing toilets, you name it. I did the work for a long time. And it was a good weekend hobby for a long time, but it was going to take me years and years and years to build up a portfolio that I could one day quit my corporate job and go do that for the rest of my life at the pace I was going. And so, I've done that. My wife and I started a tax business about 4 years ago. She's always been in accounting. And so we got into the retail tax business, and for the last 4 years have been operating multiple tax offices. That's not fun. That's that was, it was terrible. Actually, it still is. It still is terrible, but you know, we stuck with it. We still have stuck with it. But for me, when I found note investing, I knew this was going to be my home. I knew this was going to be where I spent my future. But
So
I just had to push through.
So Shawn, you know, 100 people, in fairness to kind of the conversation, 100 people come into the space, they say the same thing. I would imagine they come from, you know, experiences, you know, maybe rough experiences with landlording, a job they hate, you know, maybe a small business that was a total grind and a wear down to them. And so they come in with expectations like note investing is going to be different for me. Note investing is where I'm going to lay my hat. So they come in with the same attitude you come in with, but what separates someone that makes it to step B versus someone who just fades out?
Yeah, it's a good question. The first thing I would say is, you know, for me, I had a phenomenal mentor. Martin mentored me back in 2017, and you know, you just know I've always been a person who's focused on developing myself, and so, you know, years ago I decided I was going to be a pilot, and so the first thing that I did was seek out a teacher who wasn't just looking for a paycheck but actually cared. Right. And so for me, it's the same way. When I got into the note investing space, I was seeking somebody who, you know, not just was doing this for money, although that's important, but really cared about the success of the individual they were mentoring. And so Martin, obviously everybody knows that about you, and that's why so many people are attracted to you. But for me, like, finding the right person to teach me the business was step number one. And so a lot of people do that too. But how do you get to step number two? And for sure, I mean, every issue in this space, whether it's buying assets or setting up your CRM or setting up with vendors, like, you're gonna encounter hurdles in every direction that you look, and in every area you're trying to expand your business. And the reality is you have to push through those, every single one of them, in order to be successful.
I think the biggest hurdle, and obviously there's everything, laundry list, right? Compliance, capital, knowledge, due diligence, failures. I mean, you could go on and on. I think the greatest hurdle is not seeing the movement. So you have these high expectations, and then you're like, man, you know, I have 10 notes, and I was thinking that 3 would call me by now and want to work out a modification, you know, but no, my phone's not ringing. And, you know, my spouse is kind of on me saying, hey, maybe you need a real job. And, you know, maybe you have kind of these elements that are kind of working, and it's kind of messing with your mental. What's your thought on that? Like, I know you kind of had a period when we talked a few years ago at IMN, you were kind of at that point, with the exception of your wife. She's always been supportive.
She's never on me for making bad decisions, never. But no. So my story, which I think is a lot of people's story that get in the space, you know. So I went out, I got my training, I went out and got some notes. I ran out of capital. I raised capital, bought more notes through a bunch of JV partnerships. And so here I am working on 20 to 30 loans, trying to, you know, make it all come together, paying attorneys to work on files, promising my JV partners that money's coming, you know, spending all the resources that I have day and night, obviously working a corporate job during the day, at night working on loans. And I think at some point I was working on like 20 loans, and I could I think 9 months had gone by, and I hadn't had a loan mod in a long time. I hadn't had a payoff in a long time. The legal bills, kept coming in, and I'm just like, is this really going to work? Am I going to lose my shirt here again? And I remember meeting Martin with you at that conference, and you could tell that I was just like down on the business. I was down on everything that I'd been working on over the past 2 years. And you're like, you just got to keep going. You got to follow through. Like, don't give up. This space will reward you if you don't give up. And I remember leaving that conference, and I think on the last day I was in the restaurant down there at the Ritz. I just got a phone call from a borrower who like wanted a modification like that day. And I remember, pounding that thing out and getting it off before I got on the plane. When I landed that week, got back to work, refocused, re-energized. I think I got 3 loan mods that week. And there will always be a point in your career where you're like, I know I'm on the right track, but nothing looks right moving forward. And you just got to push through. You really need to push through it. That's the difference between the 98% in the space and the 2% in the space that make it through.
Yeah, no, awesome. And I have to just add to the story because, I had talked to you and I, talked in private at IMN, and you expressed some frustration. The attorneys were on you, JV partners were on you, and we kind of just discussed how you're going about your day, where your focus is. And what I determined is that you had put too much focus on the mechanics of things, right? Just the kind of day-to-day doing of note investing. And you had lost sight of surrounding yourself with a community that could be supportive of you, also yielding resources your way to help you navigate through. No person's an island, and with note investing, it can feel that way because you're at your, a lot of folks work out of home, and you're kind of a one-person show, and you have no one to kind of bounce ideas off of and best practices and exchanges of resources and ideas. So, that was kind of the first thing, that you're not alone. You need to talk to other individuals, see how they can help you. The other thing is, we talked about how you structured your agreements with the JV partners, and how, you wanted to you were letting them get away with some things. And we said, hey, you need to have the hard conversations. And then, so we had a nice discussion, but none of that mattered when you got 3 phone calls and 3 modifications, after the conference, because you texted me like a week later. You're like, I got 3 modifications since the conference ended, and I'm like, wow, I don't feel sorry for that guy anymore. So I'm gonna switch to another story, Shawn. Thank you for that, by the way. I was talking to someone that I love like a brother, and I get really close to the people that I work with, that I mentor, and I call it work with, because I just think I'm just so blessed to be even knowing these individuals, the caliber of these individuals that come across my path. And they're so smart and so capable. And I'm like, wow, blow me away. This individual is rocking it. I mean, Shawn, I told you before the call, he's got a 100K loan mod in the works. He's got 20K payoff this week, 8K payoff last week. He's like, yeah, I'm doing what I need to do from an asset management perspective, but I'm falling short with the community. I'm falling short with bringing in new deals. And I said, well, let's take a look at your CRM system. So he popped it up, and it was a hot mess. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. It wasn't, it looked like, items left in a garage with cobwebs on them, and just kind of aging. So, I don't know if, but anyway, we kind of worked through it, and I'm like, we went through the whole Jim Rome thing. You got to prune the bushes.
Yeah.
You got to, everyone in your CRM system has to be gold. This is how you go and bring life to your CRM system, to your whole sourcing plan for your business. And I think everybody could, benefit from that kind of thought and, that kind of activity, going back, self-reflecting. But it's also, at some point, he foregoed the point of following through, right? Yeah. He left that train, and because you go on, you're so busy working these notes, you're so busy, vetting new notes, that you lose focus of kind of the larger picture, and that you're trying to grow a thriving note business that's self-sufficient, that's self-feeding. And that doesn't happen on its own. Before you know it, you work out all your notes, and you're out buying new notes, and you're no different than a real estate rehabber at that point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, every piece of your business, and there's a lot of pieces that are critical when you're a full-time note investor. Every piece of your business needs to be moving forward, and if you get stuck on one piece, and like I was the same way, right? My head was down on trying to work these assets out, wondering why it wasn't happening. You lose sight of these other parts of the business that are so critical to the future. Those loans that I was working on that was my future for the next 6 months. But sourcing has to be a ritual, right? Where you focus on, and you need to follow through, because just like that next deal that the guys are out there flipping properties on, if you don't have that coming in, great, you're going to do great on the current flip, but where's your business next month or 2 months from now? And just like anything else, it's not an easy business. There's a lot of balls in the air. They all have to stay in the air for this thing to work, because it is real work.
And even on the asset management side, where we are, pressing forward with borrower outreach, where we are working with our legal partners, working on our servicing, with our servicing partners. There's times when you get hit with a roadblock, or you find something out about that note along the way, and you're like, wow, am I going to lose money that I've invested in legal? Or wow, is servicing going to kick this because they don't have pay history, or something happened to the property that, whereby the collateral backing your note is no longer where you thought it was going to be. Yeah. Something of significance happens, and then you start to see, like, risk level elevates, right? And then your fear also kind of goes with it, or your desire to work out the notes lessens. But at that point, you need to stick with your systems. I'm not saying put good money after bad, but you need to go forward with your systems and trust that resolution will take place. And a lot of those notes don't work out for the best in the end.
Yeah, let me tell you a little story about following through, never giving up on early on in the business, when I just had a handful of loans. Like, those were critical. Like, having success on each one of those loans was so critical for the future, for me to prove to myself that this works, for my JV partners, everybody else. There was a loan that I bought, and it was in North Carolina. I think you might remember about this one. But,
does the borrower's last name start with an R?
Yes, for sure.
I remember so much of when it comes to notes, but then you ask my wife, and it's just like I forget things all the time. So I don't know. She's getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah, but I'll never forget. Like, in North Carolina, there's, like, every state has its own little nuances, but you'll learn as you get into the space. But in this note specifically, there was a last payment made, like 10 years ago. And, I got down the road, bought the loan, spent all the money on legal, 6 months later, here we are. And all of a sudden, the borrower and their attorney are now questioning whether that payment actually was made or not. And so I went to my servicer. I'm like, hey, we need to prove that this payment was made. They're like, sorry, we don't have anything. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what am I going to do? They're like, we don't have it.
Mm.
So, I went digging, went to the prior servicer. I need this information. Like, we don't have it. We didn't service the loan at that time. I'm like, oh, great. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to lose everything on this loan. I started going through LinkedIn. I actually found out who was servicing the loan like 10 years ago at this time. Found somebody on LinkedIn who actually worked for the company. Still in business. They work for the company. I found them. I pinged them like, hey, you work for this company. You were servicing this loan 10 years ago. I'm looking for proof that you guys received this payment. She's like, oh, well, here's my number. Call me. I'm like, oh my gosh, finally. I call her up. I'm like, anything you could do just would be amazing. She's like, okay, call this person inside our company. They're going to be able to help you. Like 2 weeks on a wild goose chase, I finally get to a person who was able to download some information from their system and send it off to me. Like, this thing was done. It was dead. Like, my money was gone if I didn't persevere, didn't make that extra phone call, didn't reach out on LinkedIn and just plead with somebody for help. It finally came in. We used that document as a central point to our complaint. The borrower finally realized, hey, you know what? I do need to pay this debt. Came to the table, signed up for a $60,000 modification on a loan. Boom, here I was back in business. But it was perseverance, never giving up, following through. Every detail is critical. That's what it takes to be successful in the space.
Yeah. So perseverance, tenacity, and I have to say, I commend you for that effort. What's interesting is like you can vet the note to the umpth degree, and you could say, I know exactly what I have with a great degree of confidence. But until you kind of get into it, things pop up all the time from an asset management standpoint. So, I like to say, hey, you got to know all the tools in your tool chest and everything else, but you going out on LinkedIn is not a tool in the tool chest. That's almost like a mental tool, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's
finding a way, no matter what, never close a file, push through.
So what you said was interesting. You have to follow through with all the balls in the air, right? You have the different phases we've talked about before: sourcing, due diligence, asset management, and then portfolio management on the back end when you have something of substance. And so at every given point on a daily basis, you need to be forging ahead with all the balls that are in the air.
Absolutely. And you know what? Once they all get in the air and they're all being pushed forward, it's amazing how well they click, right? And we've seen guys in our space that are like, their business is growing really fast, right? Their business is just exploding. And so that gives me hope as we obviously are looking to the future for growth, and we can see guys in our space like PPR and some others who are just, their business is just expanding rapidly. And so once you get all those balls in the air, and then now it's like, how do I push this business forward? How do I persevere through the challenges of a growing business? Like those are the next challenges for sure.
Yeah, and how to grow wisely, right? I mean, you think of like this little boat, and I think of the biblical story with Jesus and the fish coming into the boat, and but you can load a few gold bars in the boat, but then you can't load pallets of gold bars, or you're going to sink the boat. And so you have to do it in a wise fashion. So, but awesome. Well, Shawn, thank you for sharing. I feel like this is almost like a therapy session. Let's go around.
I know. Where's the couch?
Yeah. So just to reiterate, sign up for Note Investing Fundamentals Training if you're new to note investing, Sarasota, December 12th and 13th. Or if you're an existing note investor, or you have a business, you're a part of the note investing community, you can sign up for the mastermind for December 10th and 11th. This concludes our episode of Following Through with Note Investing. And Shawn, thank you for your time, as always. And we wish everyone the very best and have a prosperous week.
Thank you. See you.